I'm not hearing anybody.
Do you hear me now, Tim? I don't know if anybody's speaking.
Can you hear me, Tim?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can
Right.
hear you.
So, yeah, Tim, we hear you, but not that that matters if you can't hear us. So, let's see. Is there a texting ability on Zoom
Mhm.
to text to somebody?
Hello.
There. Who said hello? Was that Tim?
Yeah.
This is
No.
Bob.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Do you hear
Now I
us?
can.
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. We are ready to open the evening. Welcome everyone to the May 14th, 2025 Dover Conservation Commission hearing. We're going to kick off this evening with a presentation by the Friends of Trout Brook. And I guess that's Bob M. Am I guessing that correctly? Bob Maillard?
Mallard like a duck.
There we go. Got it. So, I had not been communicating with you. I guess you'd been talking to Lori and to Amy. So why don't you go ahead and introduce us to your group, who your group is and what you do.
Okay, I'm the executive director for Native Fish Coalition with chapters in 21 states, one of which is Massachusetts. I was born and raised in Newton. I used to recreate in Trout Brook and Channing Park when I was a child. And we were informed just kind of off the cuff by Mass Wildlife that they had been in there surveying and came up for the first time ever with no brook trout. So we decided that we were going to go take a look at it, having a personal connection. And I drove down, first time in 40 years from Central Maine, and I took a look. And truthfully, I was stunned by the condition of the stream. I couldn't believe how badly it had degraded in however many years. The more I dug in, the more I learned that a lot of what I was seeing has occurred in the last 20 years, not the last 40. But it is a different stream today than it was when I was a child.
And Bob, if I can just interrupt, where were you observing? What part of Trout Brook?
We went all over it. I've gone from the headwaters upstream of the railroad tracks through the lesser property. I've gone upstream of Springdale. We put canoes from Springdale to Haven. We've hiked downstream into Haven and looked around at Claybrook. So there's probably barely a foot of stream that we have not gone into as part of our 1.5 to 2 year study.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got literally hundreds of slide presentations, pictures, maps, data. And as a result of a couple of presentations and an ongoing campaign, online campaign, just what we do typically with any project, we document what we're doing, tell people what we're looking at and working on. And so the interest in this was gaining, and the consensus was nobody was that surprised. People who had been familiar with it said, yes, it's degraded horribly in my lifetime. And some said it's gone downhill in an amazingly short period of time. And Fish and Game, of course, said it's not it's no longer even a cold water ecosystem. So we did a couple of presentations this winter. I believe it was Millis and Dover Library. And what came out of that was a decision by some local folks. David Perez is an old friend, and David, along with others, have formed their own nonprofit called Friends of Trout Brook in hopes of mitigating some of the problems. And so it all starts with getting those who need to understand what's going on in there to see for themselves and hear what we have to say. And of course, mitigation can take many forms. Charles River Watershed, they were with us during this, as was Mass Wildlife. And they're looking at the major road crossings, which have been a documented problem since the 60s. And so, there's been several groups, and at one point, everybody had left the playing field feeling like it was insurmountable. And so we picked up where Boston Trout Unlimited dropped off and got Charles River Watershed back to the table. We're working with them in a couple of projects in Newton. And Fish and Wildlife obviously has interest in any unique cold water system, inside of 495. So that's where we're at. And what I've done for this is to take and consolidate to the best I can, literally hundreds of slides from multiple presentations, condensed version just to show you the state of the state. And then it's really up to local folks, the group Friends of Trout Brook, to see, what kind of interest there is in moving forward and potentially mitigating some of the problems. And if that happens, there's groups that are willing to help. There's grant money out there for all kinds of things. And so that's why we're here.
Okay. Show us what you've discovered.
All right. So somebody, let's see. I'm going to see if I can grab can you all see a presentation screen or do I have to share a screen, or does someone share a screen?
You have to share
Share-
your screen.
You would share it, and Lori would give you permission.
Right here. I'm going to share, and let's see if I can. So can anyone see this screen with a
Not yet.
native
No,
native
share it.
logo? All right. So let's go back to.
Bob, do you see that button at the bottom of your screen that says share? It's a green rectangle with an up arrow.
Yep, I just hit that.
Now you have to choose the screen you want to share, the window you want to share, and then hit share at the bottom of that little box.
All right, I think I have it.
There
You
go.
do.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm gonna.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay, so we can hold questions to the end. I've probably got more slides than we'll have time. I'm gonna fly through the best degree I can. And as I said, this is all about Trout Brook Stream Assessment Summary. It's a summary of information culled from a series of presentation, almost 2 years of work involving several orgs and agencies. If you want to see more, if you go on to this link here, nativefishcoalition.org/campaigns, you'll see the Trout Brook link. You'll see all kinds of buttons and presentations and photos. It's a unique cold water ecosystem. It supports many species of native mammal, birds, amphibians, reptile, and fish, including rare to the area wild native brook trout.
Bob, just sorry to interrupt you, but I think you might be looking at a different screen than the one that everybody is seeing. You have to switch your screens to the presenter or go out of presenter mode.
So what are you seeing?
Trout Brook, Dover, Massachusetts Stream Assessment Summary.
So it's not advancing.
If you just
does
want to
not know.
tab down on these slides in PowerPoint, we can follow along.
Yeah, I mean, I'm advancing on my end. I don't know why.
Why don't you go over to slide 3 and just click on that? See if that changes.
I'm going to try one thing down here. See if I can control it. Now, did it change?
Nope.
Nope.
Oh,
You-
I'm
Can you
taking it.
double-click?
Right. Yeah.
you're still on Haven Street. Still on Haven Street.
Okay, so now you brought it up to slide 1, Native Fish Coalition. So
Yeah.
something
Yes.
you did there, change the screen. You may have to go through each one manually.
Yeah.
There we go. Yep.
You are advancing now?
The right
You are,
arrow
yeah.
should do it.
Yep. We just
Okay.
went from the first screen to the second. And now if you want to try the
You
next.
should see the third.
There we go. Got it. Yep.
Interestingly, what was happening is when I went into full screen mode, for some reason, it was advancing on my end and not yours. So
Mhm.
I prefer full screen, but we can work with this. In fact,
Okay.
I shrink down the side to be even less. Okay, so If you want to learn more, we'll send out an email with some links. It is a rare to the area wild native brook trout habitat. Brook trout are what are referred to as an indicator species. Their presence is a sign of a healthy cold water system. The loss of brook trout is a sign of declining ecological health. What's unique about Trout Brook in the world of cold water habitat is the fact that it is a floodplain, and it's a cold stream running through the middle of a broad floodplain for much of its length, and that is not that common. It once flew through a large contiguous floodplain that was, over time, that has been fragmented, narrowed due to roads, rails, gas lines, homes. Floodplains allow water to spread out versus rising up. With rain events, it helps prevent flooding, stream erosion, channel cutting, straightening, and widening. Today, it's really not functioning the way it used to or should. Some old maps here show the how long and wide that floodplain once was. It also shows that the three primary crossings happen to be, and not by accident, built at pinch points. This modern overview shows the gas line has cut it in half. It shows it's completely lost downstream of the gas line. So what was once extensive floodplain is now a low gradient, wooded, meadowish stream. Not typical freestone, but nonetheless, it's not what it once was. Changes to floodplains can inhibit a stream's ability to buffer flows, increases flooding, as well as contaminants. When the stream floods into yards, fields, driveways, and roads, it brings contaminants back in with it. One of the things I've noticed several trips down there is that the field to the west of Haven is backing up after rain and going up into the field and then flowing back into the stream. I was able to walk up the stream a bit, and I could see a little bit of channel cutting from these points where she rises up into the field and then finds its way back as the stream level drops. And probably at a minimum, it's manure. It could be anything else, but you're going to get salt and stuff. It's a spring-rich watershed, and that's part of what makes it unique and why it was a rare cold water ecosystem. It was called Springfield Parish, which most people know. One of the three primary stream crossings is Springdale Ave. These are what we've documented for springs. The blue ones are secondary. The red ones are the most important. They push out the most water for the most part of the season. We were able to find a couple of or a few subsurface streams. Channing's Pond, the flow coming out was colder than the flow coming in, indicating there's springs down under Channing's Pond. Same thing with a little cement impoundment upstream. And of course, Channing Park Pond, before the stream became one with it, obviously was spring fed. When I was a kid, it was crystal clear, weed free, and separate from the stream. It's critical to maintaining the cold water ecosystem. Changes in groundwater use, which you've seen through development, degraded riparian areas. We can talk about what's beyond what you know, which is the construction and power lines and on, gas lines. And precipitation has changed. I've looked at a lot of historic precipitation, and you certainly appear to have been in a pretty deep drought for a decade. All of that's negatively impacting these springs. This is a second most important tributary to Trout Brook. It's upstream of Springdale. For the first few times we had gone in, it was running, and then last year, some point, it actually went intermittent. Intermittent meaning that it was flowing, then it went underground and resurfaced 100 feet downstream, leaving a 100-foot section dewatered. And of course, any fish upstream are in trouble, and nothing downstream can get up. And that's an indication that it's going into flows that are lower than historic. I also looked at a bunch of the tributaries And I can see by the width of the stream bed and the rocky substrate, the fact that moss and stuff is taking root in what used to be stream. That's indicative of lessening groundwater. Dams, we've gone up and down. We've identified 2 dams. One is the major dam. It's more than 200 years old. It was built to power a grill mist. Grist mill, we found it on a map. A minor dam is just upstream. It's debatable as to why it was built. Some say it was an in-stream private swimming pool. Others believe it was aquaculture, raising fish, possibly for Channing's Pond on the McCoy Lesser property. This is the big one on the McCoy Lesser property, holding back, say, a 14-acre pond. It's got a notable perched drop. This is upstream, a quarter mile or whatever. It's a bizarre-looking, old by cement standards based on the quality of the cement. It was not only walled in and widened, but we learned it was dredged as well. And there's probably close to 4 feet of decaying organic matter. The old flashboards are rotted out, but there's still a fish blocking, say, 16-inch perch off the end of the flashboards. The other thing is we know there's a spring in there, so someone deliberately put this on a spring because, again, the water coming out was colder than the water coming in 80 feet upstream. The large dam at Channing's Pond, it separated Trout Brook from the rest of the stream 200 years ago. We can't blame it for the loss of trout. I would tell you that it's degrading over time. The pond is filling with decaying organic matter. We were never able to find depth behind the dam that was anywhere near the depth on the downstream side of the dam. So as you would expect, 200 years later, this is filled with decaying organic matter. The water is tannic color. The lot of vegetation has taken root. The small dam upstream, it blocks fish passage at a minimum. Some of the most intact stream is upstream of this, so much so that Fish and Wildlife was looking to seriously consider relocating some fish, translocating them from another water. We pushed back and said we want to understand why we lost them before we bring any more in. Piped earthen berms, we found 2 of them on the stream that are holding back water, that are blocking fish passage. This one, as you can see, this is the downstream side. The pipes are disconnected and they're rotted away. And this one on the top barely outflows. This one on the bottom, pushes some water. The upstream end is in just as bad a shape. The likelihood fish are getting through that pretty low. The 2 piped earthen berms, one's upstream of Channing's and one's downstream of Channing. Neither is completely blocking that we're aware of, but both are notable impediments to passage. This is what happened when we pulled some debris out of the cement dam, just branches and stuff that had clogged it. We pulled it out, it dropped 18 inches. So now you can see what those pipes look like out of water. And this is the berm at the top of the cement pond. Obviously, at least we believe that no one would have taken the time and effort to build a berm if they weren't trying to keep either something out or something in. It's either they were raising fish downstream, keeping them in, or it was a pond for somebody, a pool, and they didn't want trees floating in. This is further downstream toward the gas line. There's a small dirt road with a seasonal dwelling on it. And, this is not acting as a culvert as much as it is a conduit right now. Beavers have it dammed up on both sides, but it's greatly undersized for what it's trying to do. The berm upstream of the small cement dam, it's causing the brook to widen notably due to restricted flow. It's getting the stream channel is getting shallow. It's causing significant flooding, a lot of tree loss. Mrs. Lesser believed that it was beaver. We told her it was actually flooding. Those trees are dying, and it's not beavers. It's the berm, and it is having a notable negative impact on water temperature. At one point, we were able to test water coming in and water coming out in well under a quarter mile, probably under an eighth of a mile, 15-degree difference. So that wide spreading shallow water lost all its trees and now it's baking out there. And of course, any thermal stress anywhere in the stream is going to have a ripple effect downstream, because it goes from there into Channing's Pond, and it might cool a bit or warm a bit, and then it goes down. But bottom line is, any notable thermal stress is going to cause problems elsewhere. Stream crossings, I think you all know that these stream crossings are bad. They've been in trouble for a long time. A culvert should never be that full. We know that Charles River Watershed was looking for grant money at one point. Appears that they've resurrected that effort to see if there's money around. And one of the misleading things about the Springdale culvert is it is as much a problem downstream due to the water level coming up from beaver activity as it is there. I threw a stick in, watched it. It sat right there for the longest time. So again, it's not really functioning as a culvert. Right now, it's functioning as a conduit. It would be like dropping a piece of PVC in a fish tank, and that's more or less the effect. There's 9 unimproved road crossings throughout the watershed. 3 are on the main stem, the rest are on tributaries. Most of them are undersized because of when they were built. Most restrict stream flow and widen the stream, and most block fish to some degree. I found this 1969 document from Mass Fish, what is now Mass Fish and Wildlife, and they knew that this thing was, these crossings were a big problem, the big 3. They act as dams at times of high runoff. They're spreading the stream, destroying pools, and they said doubling the number of culverts at each of the 3 crossings would eliminate this problem. Back then, the answer to everything was more culverts. Today, it's bigger culverts or bridges, span bridges. There are 6 unimproved road, rail, and trail crossings in the watershed. Most of them are impeding or preventing fish passage. Beavers, this is an interesting, there was no beaver activity when I was a child, and based on talking to people who are familiar with it in the area, this is a relatively recent repopulation of beaver from the Charles River. When I was young, there was really no beaver around. They had been trapped out, but in any system that connects to a large river, you've got a different life history. It's called a bank beaver, for lack of a better term. They don't dam up the Charles River, but they live there. They build their houses on the bank, and over time, left unchecked, the young of the year get pushed out by the adults, and they find new homes. And apparently they've worked their way from the Charles to literally the headwaters upstream of the McCoy Lesser property. It's pretty much stops more or less at the head of Channing's Pond on the Lesser property. Outside of man, nothing alters its environment to the degree that beavers do. Their impacts on watersheds are broad, short, and long term, and can be positive or negative depending on where you are, the type of water. Excessive beaver activity can warm water temperatures, remove canopy, bury substrate required by fish and insects, and this is gravel and sand, increase aquatic vegetation, and block fish passage. Unlike the West that gets a lot of water, what we have in New England, especially southern New England, these beaver dams are built up to facilitate high water. Every time it rains and they sense this flowing, they get in and they build it a little higher. Then it drops, and you end up with what are called dry top beaver dams. Dry top beaver dams are impassable for any fish because they're just a woven mess of branches. With limited natural predators, long stretches of difficult to access stream, prohibition on recreational trapping that's been in place for 20-something years, limited nuisance trapping, beavers have attained an unnaturally high abundance in the Trout Brook watershed. This came from someone, a former Dover resident who fished there until he stopped, but he said it was as early as as recent as 2001 before he saw his first beaver. in the system, or upstream of the Charles. And then by 2007, he said they were upstream, they were moving in, they were behind Channing Park. By 2010, he went to Haven and he paddled up until he hit Beaver Dams below Channing Park. And the stream bottom was silted because it can't flush without some passage. And everywhere there used to be sand and gravel when I was a kid is now decaying organic matter. This gives you an idea of how extensive the beaver damming is now through the stream. And our folks, volunteers, canoed from Springdale to Haven, which was no easy fit. And they actually went from both ends, met in the middle. But when you see beaver dams this long that are backing up that much water, that is a notable change. And the fact that it's dry enough for us to walk around on the top. This is downstream of Haven. Haven was historically some of the most important brook trout water. It's where most state surveys were undertaken. They didn't have to go much beyond the Haven area to get good biomass where they would and so most of what we knew about the brook trout was in Greater Haven. Now Haven is just a series of impassable dams, and you can see all the debris building up. The water colors change. This is in behind Haven. And this is tree loss. It's all through the system now. Trees are coming down at an alarming rate. Older growth, like native white-tailed deer, which have reached nuisance and dangerous levels in many areas, sans any effective predators or human intervention, beaver can become invasive. This idea that they're part of the natural order is nonsense when you consider that there is no natural order. You know, what used to keep beaver in check, what used to keep deer in check are gone. In the case of beaver, it was mostly wolves and cougars. And so here's what I was stunned at what's happened in Channing Park in my lifetime. As you know, it's now part of the stream and it is just weeded up. I know they spent some money to cull weeds out of there. From what I hear, it doesn't ice up as much as it used to. That's probably a combination of water staying warmer longer due to excessive weed growth. Weed pushing up toward the surface doesn't freeze that well. And of course, changing weather patterns down there. But it was clean enough that, you know, my Grammy would take me, she'd sit on the park a lot, and we could fish it without pulling in weeds and everything else. And we could literally walk around it. The pond is now part of Trout Brook. It's due to the excessive beaver activity in that general area that's raised the water level. Beavers, every time they put up a dam, it spills over to the sides. And this is what's unique about a floodplain. You build over the main channel, and then it spills off to the side, and then they run over and build up the side, and then they build up the other side. And before you know it, they've got this network of dams that turns what was a seasonal floodplain into a giant swamp. And that's what's happened in the vicinity of Channing Park Pond. This circle to the upper left, that shows the tree loss. All this gray, this is all lost trees to flooding. This yellow shows the loss of what was at one time a continuous berm. It's obviously a man-made pond. It was probably dug on a spring based on what I remember and temperatures. And by raising the water level in here, you know, the stream was flowing through, and I suspect during some high water events, it finally just chewed away at the berm. We've had canoes in there. We can find pieces of rebar sticking up, which were likely part of berm construction. In some places, while it might be 2 feet of water, when we probed down, we couldn't go more than 8 inches down before hitting hard soil, which would be gravel, most likely, from the berm. And, you know, anyone who doesn't remember when this was a standalone, there's actually an outlet pipe about halfway up the middle on the north shore that runs from the pond underground and goes into the cattails. And that was the only outlet when I was a child. And under high water now, a lot of times, because the water table is so high, we've been there several times where the water is just flowing over the north side of the berm, but we can still see a plume of mud coming out of the old outlet. So it's intact. It's just overwhelmed by the amount of water. And I suspect the stream water getting into this pond and being part of it is why, it's probably been a big nutrient boost, which is causing, in conjunction with, warming temps, is causing this huge weed growth. Water temperature. As this is this particular section, that's what it should look like. There's gravel, there's spring stream aquatic vegetation. The in-stream temperatures in Trout Brook were the coolest measured by Department of Wildlife Management, or whatever they called it at the time, in the Charles River watershed. And that was 98. And that held true for decades. NFC and our partners deployed water temperature loggers throughout the system. We put them on tributaries. We put them at different bridges. We had them, put in by canoe. We were looking to ascertain highs, lows, averages, trends. Brook trout begin to stress at 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Looks like I got a typo there. And while they can survive water into the mid-70s for short periods, prolonged exposure will be fatal. Water temperature in most of main stem Trout Brook now remained at levels stressful to wild brook trout from mid-June through mid-September, 3 months. Here's the data. The best, coldest water is the headwaters. Trout Brook still starts very cold up in the by the railroad bed, and it runs all the way into right into early August. It's still in great shape. This is wonderful temperatures. This one that is broken, this purple line, this was up by the berm, and apparently someone pulled our logger, threw it up on the ground, and we ended up losing a few weeks of stuff. But you can see where all of our other loggers, by mid to late June, we were in trouble actually in middle of June already, and we stayed in trouble, big trouble, 65 to 75, until we started dropping off in mid-September. When we're spiking in some of these, like unfortunately, the blue is Haven Street, and Haven Street used to be the coldest, but it's a recipient of all the problems upstream, and it peaked out into the 80s at times. These are temperatures unheard of in this watershed. Many of the tributaries are fishless due to their small size, low flows, intermittency, blockage, but they do contribute water and help cool the stream. This is what our tributaries look like. Again, most of them sat in this fatal and way fatal up in 85. And a lot of that, some of it's the loss of riparian area, loss of trees. The one notable spring is the one that comes in just behind the park, Channing Pond Park. That stayed cold all summer. That goes back, 100 and so years. You'll see old maps always showing that spring as the biggest spring. Just like we used to denote towns in maps, the bigger the dot, the higher the population. In the case of springs, which were noted on all maps because they were hugely important for watering horses and for drinking water, it was the biggest, and it still is, and it's still in good shape. The next most important is upstream of Springdale, comes in from the east. That's the one that actually went intermittent. It stayed cold longer than others. It got cold, but even that got into some pretty rough temperatures. Everything else was off the charts. 2 tributaries support fish, and that was the one behind the park and the other one that went intermittent. But both of those are providing thermal refuge and possibly spawning habitat. So we're going to talk fish. NFC and our partners, we confirmed the presence of redfin pickerel, which are classified as a cool water species, banded sunfish, which are very unique sunfish. They're a stream resident sunfish. White sucker, tessellated, and swamp dart are both of what I would call cool water species. They're all native to the stream. They're beautiful little fish. Redfin pickerel are actually endangered in Maine. Banded sunfish, most people never see one. They're a moving water sunfish, a wonderful rounded tail, And of course, the two darters, swamp tessellated, they look very similar, but these are juveniles, which is a good sign. Where there was a notable issue was we found oddly high abundance in the spring streams, making us now wonder whether the main stem's getting too warm for even cool water species. We also found chain pickerel, pumpkin seed sunfish, yellow perch, golden shiners. They're native to the Charles River, possibly native to Trout Brook. The barrier that would keep those out of Trout Brook would have been temperature. These are very much warm water fish. If this was a cold stream, they'd probably stay in the Charles River, but they are now starting to move up. There's non-native largemouth bass and bluegill, yellow bullhead. The former two are highly invasive to brook trout. They are now established throughout the brook, and more so upstream of Springdale than downstream. They likely entered the stream from the Charles on the lower end, Channing's Pond from above, and Channing Park Pond. I know kids have thrown different stuff in there over the years and used bait, and bait trapping could be anything. Brook trout. Trout Brook is named after the wild native brook trout that called it home for thousands of years. The first reference we could find was 1914 Mass Wildlife Stream Survey. It said it was abundant with juvenile brook trout. Records show that they persisted until at least 2007. In most surveys, they were the most abundant species encountered. Here's an example of a 97 Mass Wildlife Survey. You'll see eastern brook trout. TB01 is Trout Brook. ST is Stony Brook over in western. But you'll see 49 brook trout and 33 redfin, and then it goes down from there. Redfin are now by far the most numerous. Here's another one, and this is all done in Haven Street. Here's 36 fish caught, 36 wild brook trout in 2007 within 100 feet of Haven Street. So that, because it was easy to access, it's what they knew. It would be harder to survey up around Springdale. Much of the other stuff is too far to carry stuff. But that shows you, you know, if they pick up 36 within a foot, 100 feet of stream at an easy access point, there was probably a pretty solid population. Following the 2007 surveys, nobody, for some reason, it wasn't surveyed again till 2021. No trout were found in that survey, raised some serious concerns. This is Mass Wildlife's Cold Water Fisheries Project leader, and this is what brought us into the project, was this news. This came to us from a former resident. We checked the dates on the video. We know where he caught it. The pictures showed on the GIS coordinates. This was caught out of a tributary in 2009. He said there were multiple fish. My guess is that the stream itself was already starting to suffer, and these fish were moving into the tributaries for thermal refuge. We used angling, electrofishing. We electrofished tributaries. We electrofished multiple places on the main stem. We actually got e-fishing equipment in upstream of Channing's Pond, downstream of Channing's Pond, Haven Street, the tributary behind the park. And then when everything else failed, we paid for eDNA testing, targeting brook trout. That's what e-fishing looks like. And these are our volunteers actually fishing, going in canoes, collecting eDNA water samples. We cannot say they're definitively that wild brook trout are gone. At best, they're severely depressed. At worst, they have been extirpated. If eDNA missed them, I can see e-fishing and angling missing them, but we did some pretty extensive eDNA and picked up no positives for brook trout. Summary, and that's what it should look like, and that's what it used to look like in a lot of places, especially downstream of Haven. Trout Brook is no longer functioning as a cold water ecosystem. The water temperature is being negatively impacted by changes in weather patterns, increased groundwater use, most likely due to development. Kind of northwest of Springdale looked like a recent development. 90% of the homes or whatever it is in 70% are pulling water from private wells. Another 20 are pulling water from a municipal well, which is pulling from your aquifer, and then a handful, I guess, are tapped in a Medfield or something. And this unnaturally high beaver abundance. Much of Trout Brook is now impounded due to road crossings, dams, pipe berms, and excessive beaver activity. Impounded means it's not flowing. It's just, leaching through these dams. It's become a series of stepped pools rather than where there was once free-flowing water. This comes from mass wildlife, water temperatures, risen to levels unsuitable to brook trout, and the most telling is he says it's more or less become a series of relatively shallow, slow-flowing, silt-bottom swamps. Potential mitigation. Left alone, Trout Brook will continue to degrade, impounding will increase, stream flow will decrease, more trees will be lost, water temperatures will get warmer, aquatic vegetation will increase as a byproduct of warming water, and floods that are rising water that brings nutrients in from fields, and more habitat required by brook trout and other native aquatic life will be compromised, including insects. A lot of we suspect, we're going to probably do some sort of macro testing, but I'm going to guess that certain insects are gone, the ones that need gravel to spawn in, mayflies and stuff. While some of what is negatively impacting Trout Brook is out of our control, weather, etc., some of what is affecting the stream could be addressed by decreasing groundwater use. There's a lot of this is going on all over the country. I saw it in Newton, surprisingly. They're doing voluntary different lawn management, etc. We see it in Ketchum, Sun Valley, Idaho, where everybody's got agreements to only water at certain times of the day and whatever. And so less evaporation, which means getting the stream moving again. Moving water evaporates at a notably slower pace than standing water. Improving stream flow gets this floodplain drawn back in. So what this stream once looked like is you would have had a 10-foot wide, stream running in the middle of a 100-foot floodplain, or a 100-yard floodplain in some places. And that floodplain would have been a series of channels in amongst hummocks. And when the rain came and that stream rose, it would flow sideways into these channels and these hummock fields and buffer it and then drop again. NFC and our partners, and the partners are Charles River Watershed and Mass Wildlife, and now this nonprofit based out of Dover, Friends of Trout Brook. We're all willing to help restore, try to restore. We can provide subject matter expertise, project management, volunteer help, while assisting in obtaining grants where necessary. These are the folks we've worked with. Native Fish Coalition .org if you're interested in what we do. And that's it.
Thank you very much. It was very helpful, and it's we've encountered different pieces of the problem in a variety of filings, and so it's nice to see it all put in one place here. Do any commissioners have any questions?
Excuse me.
And Boynton?
Well, I just have a comment. I've been resident of Dover most of my life. I have a log here of trout caught in 1955, and I caught 104 trout. 48 of them were caught before June 1st in a tributary of Trout Brook. Now, the last time I went fishing in Trout Brook was May 15th, 1999, and at Haven Crossing, and I caught, I'll just read, put in my bark canoe at a Haven Street cross, caught 5 brook trout out between 8 to 10 inches, kept all caught within 200 yards upstream from the bridge.
Yeah.
So I'd be glad to help you.
My family comes from Newton, Needham, and Westwood. My grandpa was a sportsman. My first trout came from Trout Brook and Brook Trout. And I was a high-tech executive for years. I checked out young, and I opened a fly shop for 15 years. I've written 5 books on fly fishing, hundreds of articles across dozens of publications, and now I'm heading up a fish nonprofit. So that's what got my attention, was when I heard that this really beautiful, unique water had degraded. It sounded alarmist to me, to be honest. I was like, it couldn't have gone that bad until I showed up. I was almost in tears when I saw what has happened to Haven and Springdale, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. This is not a catastrophic failure. This is a series of events over a period of probably 25 years that's expedited in the last 10 years and continuing to get worse. But I've seen it. If you want to know where you're heading, Route 2 out of Littleton, you'll cross a stream called Beaver Brook. It's just a big swamp. It was a trout stream when I was a kid. It's gone. It'll never be restored. It was let go too far. And hopefully Trout Brook won't be. And the beauty of Trout Brook, there's a lot of publicly owned land in the Army Corps. There's not a lot of development stream side. With the amount of inaccessible water, I'm going to guess when our folks put canoes at Springdale to Haven, I'm going to guess that section of stream hadn't seen a canoe for 30 years. That's not something people do today, ripping through brush and dragging over beaver dams. But our folks just have an amazing amount of data, photographs. It's all online. And it's fascinating.
Thanks, Bob. I just want to, Janet Bowser has her hand up.
Hi, Bob. I'm the conservation agent for the town. Thank you so much for your presentation and all your work. I'm sure the commission would look forward to collaborating with you and the Friends in trying to address some of these issues. Just 2 quick questions. A large part of the brook itself and the watershed is on the Lesser family, the 100 acres of private property. I believe most of that is under a CR with the trustees, but have you had any conversations with that family about potential dam removal on their property?
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time on their property, permission granted by Karen, and she was receptive to certain stuff. The things that I can't overstate the fact that trout persisted for 200 years after that dam was built. Do I like that dam? No. However, we can't say that property is what's caused the loss of trout. It did cause the loss of trout from their pond upstream, and it's having some warming effects. And I'm pretty sure that they understand that pond's getting shallower and shallower and muddier. But when we started talking mitigation, something happened and we were pretty much shut off. And I think it was Mr. McCoy, Paul, I guess. I've never met him, but there was some reluctance. And, we feel like if there's any one thing you could do on that property to have a notable impact without having any aesthetic negative impact or historic negative, it would be the earthen berm. It serves no real purpose. It's warming the water. It's a mess. And that would be where I'd focus. We've dealt with other people with historic dams on their property, and I understand the reluctance. In New England, for whatever reason, ponds have a higher value, economic value, than streams. You go out west and nobody wants a pond. They want rivers and streams. But, and you've got a 200-year-old structure, beautiful old structure. And we were working with a woman out in somewhere in southeastern Mass, similar issue. And, we did talk about, there's ways, if there's interest, where you can open a stream to flow, but keep the structure intact and put up a kiosk or whatever you want. But I think in general, the issue, the biggest bang for your buck upstream is really to get the coldest water you can from the Lesser property outside the lesser property, because it's never going to be open fish passage to the headwaters, which are fascinating. And we'd love to take you in if you want to see some of it. But until that dam comes down, that there's no fish passage. So,
Bob, is there any experience with dredging of ponds? Does that allow for cooler water?
Yeah, I mean, if I was the lessers of McCoy's, I would dredge that pond just for aesthetic reasons, because it's weeding up, it's getting, and it's going to warm, and the weedier and warmer it gets. So there's things you can do. Dredging would certainly, the deeper water will warm slower, and it'll get less weed growth. And so dredging is a good thing. Dredging something, say like Channing Park Pond, my gut is, well, it's obvious. Whatever you did to remove weeds didn't really work, because they're back with a vengeance. And from what I remember, I could wade out as far as I wanted to on the pond at the park. It had a very solid bottom, and it wasn't collecting organic matter at the time because it wasn't part of the stream. So that's another area for a lot of reasons. That pond had a huge recreation and aesthetic value to the community. It was the one place you have where children can safely fish. Trout Brook's not necessarily a safe place to turn your kid loose, and certainly the Charles isn't. But that was what Channing Park offered, was a safe place for children to fish and ice skate. And so there's another area where you've got dual benefit. You could bring back the aesthetic value and recreational value of that pond while separating it from the stream. And it's an existing structure, the berm, so permitting would be a little different. It'd be easier to fix it than to try to build a new one. Today, you probably wouldn't get a permit to build that close, but it's already there. So this is, there's so many different ways to go at this, and we've got a lot of ideas that could involve, scouts and stuff and school kids.
Well, Bob, let me, we've run over our time frame a fair amount. We have a full agenda behind us here. I just wanted to touch base with, and thank you very much. I think you'll be, we'd like to contact you and go over, what our options are, and some of them would be more practical and easily implemented than others. But this has been, this has addressed a number of questions that have come up as we've dealt with beavers in that neck of the woods, for example, or diminishing streams, an increase in the number of intermittent streams. So all of this ties in, and this has been really, really helpful. I just saw Anna had her hand up for a while. Anna?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, really interesting, really helpful. It sounds like it's degraded fast, but correct me if I'm wrong, because of the way it's degraded and because of the significance of the springs, like this could be really improved with some orchestrated work. Like it's not like too far gone, even though it's pretty far gone.
I don't see anything as hopeless. I've seen some, we're working up on Cheesecake Brook in Nonantum or Silver Lake. It's walled. We're working in on Cold Spring Park in Newton. That thing was moved. It was dredged down 5 feet. It's straight as a bowling alley. So your stream looks great compared to some of the stuff we look at. And the interesting thing about the beaver is I lived in Pepperell and Brookline, New Hampshire for a long time. And when I left the Newton area, and there was no beavers there. And like the first beavers I'd seen were up in Pepperell, and the guys told me they were pretty new. They said, these things really just started coming around. And everybody loved them until they got to be a real problem. And I liken what's happening with beavers today to what's happening with deer. There was a time, seeing a deer in Eastern Mass was like seeing Bigfoot. And when we were seeing them, everybody loved them. And then what happened is things got so totally out of control with Lyme disease and car accidents and property damage that communities that would have shouted you out of town 20 years ago are begging for these community hunts now because we've accepted the fact that left unchecked, ungulates will explode, and as will beavers. But beaver infestation is just newer. We know a lot about deer. Aldo Leopold, he quit his job and said this predator control stuff is wrong. This is a mess. We need to leave things, the way they were. And so that's where you're heading with beaver. I just remember in Townsend and Groton, Mass, where, roads were flooding, basements were flooding, and it's nothing natural about it. We're here, we're not going anywhere, and we disrupt things pretty successfully. And so nothing's hopeless. I'm an optimist. I believe that there's no switch that I can flip that's gonna put it back to what it was when I was a child. But I do think that with a concerted effort over time, and it's a lot of time, it might be 10 years to see notable improvements between permitting and money, and but hopefully you head in that direction and you keep picking away at it. And the current condition, it's not attractive. It's not something you can recreate. The worse it gets, the harder it's going to be to motivate people to actually save it, fix it. And that's a fact. I mean, I've seen these things get so bad that nobody is willing to step, and you're not there yet. You're close.
So, Bob, have you had any experience working with the Army Corps on their property?
No, and most of what needs to happen on the Army Corps property, it's more beavers than anything. You're not going to change, the gas line. There's no culverts and stuff on their property. It's just a matter of saying, we'd like to do something about knocking this beaver population, relocate them, build. The Lessers put a notable beaver deceiver on their dam because the beavers had, they were just flooding the top of her dam, her outlet. And what happens with that old historic dam is once the beavers dam the outlet, then the water starts flowing around the sides. Those old stone dams were not shoved that far into the sides. And it doesn't take that much erosion from water spilling over the sides of an old stone dam to cause catastrophic failure. The thing just falls on its face. And so they did a beaver deceiver that drew that pipe, that outlet, way into the lake. They're probably 10 feet into the pond. And nobody can dam it. They might have actually moved some beaver out of there. I don't know. Someone in town said they moved 6 or 8 beaver, but quit because of harassment. That's the best I could remember. Paid, I believe.
Well, I'd love to go into greater detail, but we do have another the main agenda following here. So thank you very, very much. And I think this addresses a number of things that we've been witnessing over the last 10 years as well. And I will stay in communication and discuss among ourselves, the prioritizing of what functions we might be able to do there.
And I'd be glad to come down and meet with some folks and maybe tour some of the areas and show you some of the things that we know. And
So I think, I think that's something we'll definitely bring up shortly. Just we also have been we've been very busy for a number of years for some of the things that may contribute to this. So we'll keeping that in mind, we'll as we move forward.
I had a related question, which is the last house on Edgewater. Is that occupied?
I don't know. Does anybody know?
As you approach the circle near the power lines, you mean?
Yes. The last house on the left.
Yes, so we issued a permit for them. They were renovating their house. As far as I know, we haven't received any change of ownership. I don't know if it's occupied or not. I don't know if that work's been completed.
Is that number 3?
Yeah. We've noticed that, the water table down on Haven, Lower Haven, and down into that Edgewater, it's now a series of ponds. And I was wondering whether anybody's seeing water in their basement. And a little factoid for those who don't know. There used to be a boardwalk under the power line. My Grammy would drop me off at the end of Edgewater, and I would walk an old boardwalk the whole length of the power line, come out on dry land, and be able to fish on the up behind the houses at Edgewater. And I can still see segments of it on satellite maps. And
have you encountered the term freeboard at all relative to flooding?
Relative to
flooding, it's a term that's basically taking some of the changes in flood storage due to climate change or whatever the term is this week, and recognizing that floodplains alone are changing, and to get ahead of them, they've been increasing the potential storage, because knowing that it will be made use of in the next 20 years. So that constant, for example, the Charles River has in that neck of the woods has a 108-foot elevation, which basically covers all its floodplain. And what we're seeing, as you mentioned, behind Edgewater and other areas in town that are subject to that, that seems to be creeping closer to 109 feet. But FEMA maps don't yet reflect it. And I just didn't know if, if you'd run across it. But rather than, I do feel compelled that we do have to
I was gonna
move
say,
on.
John, we should move on.
Okay.
So thank you very much, and touch base with Lori, and we will we'll continue our communication here. And this is very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thanks everyone for your patience. That was very elucidating. We've had let's move on to this evening. We're 148 Pine Street with an expired order of conditions for work never done. Janet, why don't you fill us in?
Sure. So I did review the file. I did a site inspection and confirmed that no work was done. I also confirmed that with the owner. So I am recommending approval of a certificate of compliance with the 4 conditions in perpetuity as listed in my report.
Okay. Any questions or comments on part of commissioners? I'll entertain a motion to
move to issue a certificate of compliance for 148 Pine Street.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, thank you. Let's see, 210 Claybrook, it looks like has that been continued, Lori?
No.
Oh, no, it's it's just on the agenda. It said that. Okay, why don't you fill us in on that?
Sure. So this was a tear down in a new house at 210 Claybrook Road. They had submitted the certificate of compliance request a while ago, but wanted to add a fence. So they were in for a minor modification for that. The fence is in. I did a site inspection, confirmed that all work has been done in accordance with the original permit. Their signage and permanent bounds are in as required. So I am recommending approval of a COC with the 4 conditions in perpetuity outlined in my report.
Great, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, move to issue a certificate of compliance for 210 Claybrook Road with the 4 conditions outlined in the agent's report.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you. Let's see, 56 Main Street. Janet, why don't you fill us in?
So this is this was an order of conditions going back for a new home. I believe in 2008. It's an older permit. It has expired. I did look through the original permit file, the original approved plans. The COC request that I copied in my report outlined a number of deviations and changes, but based on my site inspection this past Monday with the current owners and also with their wetland specialist, Nicole Hayes, who is from Goddard, who's in the meeting. My sense is that the deviations are minor in nature, are not showing any kind of impact or alteration to the wetland. If the commission would like, I think Nicole could pull up her report outlining her assessment of the deviations, and that there is no impact. She did have some photos as well. But overall, I'm recommending approval of the COC with the 4 continuing permanent conditions in perpetuity as outlined in my report. And because this is changing hands, a new deed is required. I received a draft of the deed from the, I believe it was the buyer's attorney, or it could have been the seller's. But I did receive a copy of the deed. The deed is in order. They're just waiting to close to then record that deed. So it would be up to the commission. If you want to see some photos and an explanation of the deviations, there were quite a few. I think there were 12 or 13.
Commissioners, thoughts on this?
I don't see any issues.
No, I think that's part of having Janet's eyes in the field.
Right, exactly.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Sure, move to issue a certificate of compliance for 56 Main Street with the 5 conditions outlined in the agent's report.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Is Anna? Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye,
And I'm an aye. Okay.
that was 4 conditions, sorry.
Well, the 4 conditions, but we
5
will
questions,
hold,
yeah.
we will hold until, oh, no, actually, Janet, you've received the wording for the deed now. So is there, you mentioned holding this, but do you see any need to hold this?
I don't. I know their closing is coming up quickly, so
Okay.
I'm comfortable with seeing the draft.
Okay, so then the 4 conditions and 5 will is self-performing. Okay, thank you. Next we have let's see, so 8 Pagan Lane is been continued. Is that correct, Lori?
Yes.
Okey-doke. And let's see, I'm just scrolling down. 14 Rule Drive.
They also requested a continuance.
Oh, did they? Okay.
But actually, I'm sorry, but there is a formal vote that is needed that I outlined in my report. So I could just give an update on this.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead. Is that a proper thing to do if they've continued it and they're not here?
Well, it's to take an action based on the commission's site inspection.
Oh, right, as opposed to their notice of intent.
Right.
Okay, then why don't you go ahead and
Okay.
proceed.
So the commission, we had a site inspection. Let's see. That was a couple weeks ago. John and Amy were both there. We met with one of the contractors, arborist, Deb Anderson, who is handling their wetlands work. As I reported at the last meeting, when I did my site inspection, not only did I confirm tree removals, but there was extensive filling and alteration along a vernal pool and also BVW wetlands. And it was the sense of Amy and John and also myself that we would want a restoration plan. But because that was a site visit and not a formal meeting, I would recommend that the commission take a vote tonight to require the submittal of a restoration plan for the alterations and fillings outlined in my last regulatory report and in accordance with our buffer zone restoration policy.
So And these are very helpful pictures on your regulatory report, Janet. I remember that there was discussion about the wood chips versus mulch. They had a machine that stripped this and made this a finer material, and also the fact, I don't know if commissioners have this up in front of them, the regulatory report. There, due to the steep slope going down into the vernal pool, there's clearly evidence of long-term filling, probably landscaper filling and stuff like that over the years. That this wasn't, we saw a top dressing of mulch, but the main filling seemed to have been yard debris and grass tailings. As we move forward on this, the concern would be to have a restoration plan that also doesn't create a much steeper slope that could cause worse issues than currently exist. What are your thoughts on that, Janet?
Yes, and I think Deb Anderson, I think we had a fairly thorough discussion with her about concerns. So I would expect that a restoration plan, and again, it would just be the first draft for the commission's review, would address that slope issue.
Okay. And
If they take out if they take out the material that's been dumped over the year, it's gonna make it less steep. Because
I'm not so sure. Because I don't know the profile of the ground underneath that.
Well, the top where we were standing was clearly where they had put all the wood chips, not where the lawn was, but where they'd put all the wood chips. It was a few inches of wood chips and a lot of inches of yard debris. So I think it's actually going to pull the whole bank back. But obviously, let's see what Deb finds when she does her work.
And also, just to be clear, on the other side, so this is a property that has a vernal pool on one side and then a very clear wetland on the other side. I don't recall, and help me out, the wetland portion of it did not seem to have the level of filling and that their vernal pool did. Is that, am I correct on that?
Well, there was a good 10 to 15 feet of wood chips leading towards that BVW. After the new lawn, there was 10 to 15 feet of wood chips.
Okay, so I don't have a photo for that, but I just had a question because obviously it didn't have the grade change that this does. So, and I just recall all the invasives that were there at the edge of the wetland. Okay, well then this is we'll leave this up to Deb. So what you're looking for, Janet, is that a vote to incorporate a restoration plan into the notice of intent?
Yes, so there is an existing enforcement order, but I think having the restoration plan under the notice of intent gives the commission more leverage.
As opposed to having it being under the enforcement order?
Yes.
Okay, and did the enforcement order ask for a restoration plan originally?
No, it asked for an NOI.
Okay, so we have that. Okay, so I will entertain a motion that that a restoration plan be added to the NOI.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Oh, Tim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
John, I would just say we document this because everything was just verbal out on the site, that a letter go out of the office, just that the commission took a formal vote, the restoration plans required, and I would suggest in this situation, the property is going to be on the market very soon, that we have a very firm soon deadline for the restoration plan.
Mm-hmm. I don't see a problem with that. I don't see it's relatively confined compared to the size of the lot. I think Deb should be able to come up with that. The question there is, do we want to say in that letter anything specific that should be addressed in the restoration plan?
I didn't get that far, but I think if we say a restoration plan in accordance with our buffer zone restoration policy,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty accurate. That will.
Okay. Okay. Then, Lori, do you have everything you need to send something like that out, or do you have any questions?
All set.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, and
Um,
I'm sorry, just one other thing. Lori had sent out a letter we received from a butter. It was not a happy letter.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if it's worth sending out a letter explaining the situation and sending them a copy of the enforcement order. They seem to think that we were just allowing them to take down these trees without any repercussion. So if we were perhaps as an explanation of the process, let them know we did issue an enforcement order, this was not permitted, and that we're, following up within the extent of our authority.
Okay. Can you, Lori, would that be helpful for Janet to write that and send it to you for you to send out? Or do you,
Sure. That'd be
okay.
good.
Janet, why don't we do it that way? Because you're more familiar with, or we're trying to divide up the workload here. And I think, yeah, the tenant letter saying that this was an after the fact approval, as if it was something that we always did. I think the clarifying that that's precisely why there's an enforcement order and a notice of intent was required, and a restoration plan. I think that.
But somehow they didn't get notified of the enforcement order, and maybe that's something we should add into our procedures, even if it's not necessarily required. It would be good PR.
Mhm.
I
No,
agree with this.
Landowner education that
yeah, I think that's not a
that
bad idea.
we do
so
enforcement orders, and
Mhm.
that would also alert the neighbors to
Not making the same
not
mistake.
doing it themselves, and B,
Mhm.
also letting us know if they see additional work
Mhm.
happening on the
And
property.
do you
Be our
think
eyes and ears.
how far out away from it, just the directly abutting neighbors? Because obviously we can't send it out to everybody within a 300-foot radius. Or
Maybe the two and one directly across. I heard about Rural Drive, by the way, through the grapevine is just upsetting that neighborhood. So I think we
Mhm,
definitely
mhm.
should reach
Well, I
out
think
to
it was
abutters.
interesting when we got out there. They actually had a method to the madness relative to invasives, but again, they didn't follow any process. Many of the trees they took down were invasive trees. It was pretty typical of the houses from the 60s and 70s that nobody had touched, and so there were massive trees overhanging.
I mean, I think it, in some ways, it's, if we get the typical abutter notification list, it's almost easier just to send it to all of them.
Yeah, I think you have a point there.
To figure out which the
No, I think you have a
closest
point.
ones are, but
I think part of that is then there may be times where we want to send that out with an enforcement order where there is no abutters list because they haven't applied for anything yet. But I think it'd be good to be on top of that to let people know
but
that.
you can get an abutters list. It's an automatic, isn't it? You just press a button and get one from the assessor's office?
I'm not sure if it's quite so easy. Why don't we, Lori, do you have any input on that?
I've never had to get an abutters list because usually applicants do those and they
It's like a thing
apply
on
online and it costs money. So I don't know what happens if if we were sending out to, and is it 300 feet like it is for an applicant?
Well,
Oh,
that's
we're,
the
That's-
question.
this is,
that's gonna
this
be
is
it.
pure PR for us. But I was just, I thought I saw something.
You can
Um,
do it through the assessor's website, but people, pay for that, and sometimes it, depends on
Well,
how.
why don't
people
we discuss on right at the moment, let's piggyback on these the abutters list that we got. For this, my concern is, again, that means Lori has to enter all this stuff in, and the workload is very large right at the moment. I think a direct abutters list, meaning just the ones that are abutting, maybe or across the street, would get the point across, and allow us to do so quickly. In this particular instance, and then I think we can look into talking with the treasurer's office, see if there's a way that we can get any courtesy discount or things of that nature, and then see a way to. There's no reason for us to take this on with additional workload without compensation of some form.
yeah, no, I agree. I just thought it was easy to get the butters list, but now I
Yeah.
can't find it.
But I
So
think once you get it, then you have to send
And
it.
you have to send them all out by mail.
Yeah. So
well,
and I'm
hopefully we
sure-
won't have that many enforcement orders.
Right. Well, they do seem to be they take lately they've been half of our NOIs. It's 50-50 has been what we're running. It's been a pretty interesting 2 years for enforcement. Go ahead, Lori.
So just one more question. You all were gonna give that restoration plan to be submitted by a date
Okay.
for the
So,
letter that I have to send.
Right. So sending out by tomorrow is not going to give them enough time to give us that restoration plan by the following Wednesday. So we would be looking at 3 weeks from today.
Okay.
And if they get it to us faster, we will put them in the on the other agenda. But I don't unless Deb has been working on it already. Janet, do you recall discussion with her whether that you got a sense that she would be starting on that?
Yeah, I thought she was going to get a start on that. We also, the surveyed plan also missed some things, the NOI plan. And so that had to be redone, but I think that's reasonable. June 4th, ask for a submittal on June 4th. That seems reasonable.
Okay. In time for the, is it June 11th? Is that our next meeting in June? Okay. Okay, then we have an enforcement order response and discussion relative to 90 Claybrook Road. Janet, why don't you fill us in what this is concerning?
So you know, at the end of January, I had gotten a request from Commissioner McLaughlin to about some potential unpermitted tree removals in a wetland resource area at 90 Claybrook. I did a site inspection and did confirm a number of trees were removed. We issued an enforcement order and requested that the wetlands a wetlands delineation would be done. We also, there were, let's see, 9 specific corrective actions we requested. One was also that the older order of conditions for the new house on this property never received a certificate of compliance. We wanted to see that. My sense is there could be some deviations from the original, so that's something we would address within the enforcement order. Let's see, identification of the trees removed, the size, and any other type of disturbance. So we did receive the owner here, Tracy Mannon. She hired Beta Group. Tyler Drew is in the meeting. He submitted a wetland delineation report, and we also have a site plan from Cheney Engineering. So my suggestion would be to have Tyler walk us through his report and then also look at the site plan. The site plan did indicate some additional clearing, brush clearing within the wetlands itself. And as I noted in my report, it appears that there was also some of the trees that were removed and some clearing was done on the abutting property.
Mhm.
So that needs to be addressed.
Okay. Okay, then welcome, Tyler, and you have the floor.
Great. Good evening, commissioners. Again, I'm Tyler Drew with Beta Group, representing the property owners at 90 Claybrook Road. I conducted the wetland delineation at the beginning of last month to review the site and do a count of the trees. There was some tree work done at the request of the home insurance company. They posed a risk to the house, so they were removed, and trees were preserved, if it was feasible, although a lot of them were leaning over the house, so branches and things needed to be trimmed. Based on my observations, it appeared, and the invoice from the tree company, about 15 trees were cleared. Based on my observations in the field, about 5 of them were located within the wetland. I think there was some discussion about the existing conditions plan, about the numbers on those. There was also, as she mentioned, there was some brush clearing within the BVW located on all sides of the house. That extends like farther back into the tree line. So that is depicted on the existing conditions plans as well. Do you have any specific questions about the property?
Well, I think the thing to do would be to, do you have a plan done up in response?
The existing conditions plan?
Yes, if you can
yes.
share that with us.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so this is the property at 90 Claybrook Road. You'll see along this side is where trees were cleared along this side of the property, several in the back, and then several on this side. So again, I believe the total is about 15 trees. I think the surveyors picked up a couple of extra. I think that's where the discrepancy comes in. There's a 4-inch stump that I did not include in my total. But you can see I have marked out the ones that appear within the wetland itself. There was a couple of areas of wood chips that were deposited within the BVW also. And then piles of logs were stockpiled on the property. These were outside of the BVW boundary. However, there is a stockpile of logs located up here within the cleared brush area. I also wanted to note that there's a 36-inch stump mapped on the plan. This, as far as I know, was not, this was a naturally fallen tree. It was not a result of the tree clearing. And then you can see the limits of the brush clearing here.
Mm-hmm. I had a question for Tracy. And Tracy, did you, are you the original owner of the house? Are you the person who had it built?
Absolutely, yes. So the history of this is a little bit different. I bought the house in '96 from the Marinis. And I know the history of it back to like Leo Maker and Chickering. So there's only been a handful of owners. But what had happened was I had a tenant in the property. We were planning on moving back. And when the tenant was here, he got an oil delivery. And that oil delivery unfortunately spilled into the ground. So I had to remove the tenant, clean it all up. That's when I hired Nova Armstrong, and it took a long time. And unfortunately, the oil had gone down into the base of the house, into the foundation. So we were planning on moving back anyway in a few years. So we just cleared. We had to knock the house, clear all the foundation out. Like I said, it took over 2 years to probably get the clearance on this from the DEP. We took everything out. moved our building plans up since we were excavating the whole area and built the new house. So we ended up, once we had cleaned it up, we ended up getting the permit for the new well. We had to do a new well, do a new septic. Everything was new. Then we got the building permit and then the occupancy permit because the DEP had said everything was clean. So they had looked at the wells for quite a while. So yes, original owner, absolutely.
So the 2013 order of conditions, was that for the house or was that for the cleanup?
It was, that's I think it was a little bit of everything. Janet might be able to update me, and I have to thank Janet because I didn't know the order of conditions was actually not fulfilled until this whole thing happened. So it's probably in a way good that it happened because what I've been told, I think Tyler, you might have mentioned it to me that when houses change hands or you hand them down to somebody, if the order of conditions is not fulfilled, it's very difficult to do. So I'm kind of happy that was noted, and I'd like to get that obviously filed appropriately. So yes, I would have been the owner at that time. And I believe the order of conditions probably was for a little bit of both, just to make sure the cleanup was all done and the house was done appropriately. So
okay, thank you. So Janet, was the order conditions for the new house? Janet? Let me just see if she's still.
So yeah, I believe yes, it was for the new house, the septic system, and then I don't think it incorporated the 21E cleanup work. Because that really is outside our jurisdiction, but we wanted to be aware of that as well.
Right. So the reason I asked is that I mean this would have been a tough house to do if it had not been a grandfathered house.
Absolutely.
It's surrounded on all sides by wetlands.
Absolutely.
So,
we never would have been able to build it if it wasn't
right.
for the original
And
structure.
So you went through the process with the original order of conditions, built the house. And so what I'm thinking is that, so you knew there were wetlands all around the house, is my assumption here.
We had been told the back right of the house that was the majority of the wetlands, yes.
But now you've seen a plan and you see that the wetlands extend around all three sides of the house?
Yes, yes. And I was also made aware that the wetlands change every so many years. I think it was Cheney Engineering that explained that to me.
Not so much. It's surprising. It's a nice thing that people sort of put their head on, but it doesn't change that much. And lately, if anything, they've been encroaching, on things.
Yeah.
So in this case, what we're looking at is, almost anywhere your house is within the buffer, the entire house. So any work done there, and given that you had this plan done, as part of your construction, it's kind of, I know insurance companies come in and they can put the fear of God on you, but they don't have jurisdiction. And the fact of the matter is, you had already dealt with the board before, and you should have known. Frankly, I'm a little surprised here that especially stuff that went right into the wetland.
I didn't deal with the board. I'm not sure. I don't feel like I dealt with the board too much. It was more the cleanup I felt like I was dealing with, because it was so extensive, and so traumatizing,
This is a thing where it's, as you mentioned, difficulties with title relative to orders of condition. And Janet, was this order of conditions recorded?
I don't think so.
I don't have that file. I'm assuming it was. This was before my time, but
No, I just didn't know if in any of the research on this. So, I mean, basically, everything you did in here was in the buffer, and especially, I'm not sure if Tyler can tell us, but looks like you had some. I'm just going down. There was trying to figure out where the edge of lawn is relative to the lot. So there's, I guess there were a number, were there 5 trees that were cut down actually in the wetland itself, Tyler?
I believe so, yes. The edge of the lawn would be this line here.
Yeah, a lot of them were actually dead. They were actually dead. Some of them were stumps. Some of them, actually, one of them to the right of the house had actually fallen on the roof of the original house. And then more of it had fallen next to our gas tanks to the right. So that was one of the stumps too.
And I would imagine that might be the 32-inch stump that's there.
Hmm.
So anyway, Janet, where do we stand here in terms of your recommendation?
So I am recommending, given that their Beta came up with a different wetland line than the original line. Also that it involves a hazardous material release, an action plan, that we hire Ecotech, Paul McCann.
Well, let me just stop there. As far as DEP is concerned, that was separate from the order conditions we had out, and if they signed off on everything, I don't think that should be affecting our review on this. I think we're looking at this just on a on the. It sounds like they did not get a certificate of compliance on the house. Is that correct?
And that's right. And I would recommend that Paul also review that piece. And it could be true that the DEP did sign off on this, but Paul, as a licensed site professional, would know exactly what kind of certification was needed. So we could at least, check that box to make sure that was completed.
Well, so, and then on top of that, so the concern is, where was the original wetland line, Tyler?
Is this gray line here?
Okay. So and the main issue that we're dealing with is, regardless of where that was originally, it's the lines that you're showing on this plan, are they the current lines for wetland, or are they?
This is the current line here, the dark one.
And your 50-foot line is from that?
Correct, yes. Yep.
Okay, so we're still 100% in the buffer. So it's really, nothing really changes, even though the wetland line appears to have moved. Well, it varies, depends on where it was. So some of it in the back moved back, and some of it in the sides, moved a little closer. But all that's immaterial. I think really what we're looking at here is how to handle, number one, the certificate of completion. Number two, the tree cutting and the wood chips. And has there been any communication with the neighbor in whose land you had cut and put some wood chips on?
No. But of course, we're happy to clean that up. So I'll be honest, I don't think I'm looking at my driveway, and I don't think I even knew how close that line was at the time, which is my fault, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah. So no, basically, in essence, and I'm just blunt because we've run into this, but this is it's all your fault.
It is. I know. I know it's terrible.
And so the thing here is, and especially going over lines, the reason I asked is, in order to go in as part of this mitigation would be to remove the wood chips from within the wetlands, but that's not your property, so you would have to notify the owner in order to do work on their property.
Sure, no problem.
And Janet, I just because I'm fairly familiar with 21E, if absent the 21E, do you still see a need for Paul?
Yes, I actually say this site is more complicated. Tyler, can you scroll up a little bit? There's also substantial cleared debris area in the BVW. And also there's floodplain. So this is not your run-of-the-mill restoration.
And when was Tracy, when was that area cleared beyond there, the
that would have been so that would have been the week before Janet came. They had been the company had been paid and was gone about a week before Janet came. So I think that was January, Janet, was it?
Yes, end of January.
Yes.
So you requested them to go ahead and clear some of that since they were there because they were taking trees down?
What we talked about, and I had kind of mentioned it last time, was some of the wounds on the bottom of the trees. We were trying to save as many trees as possible. And I had some of them cabled actually to save them, because some of the branches are actually still coming over near the house. But I said to him, if we cut that branch, will it kill the tree? And he would say yes to a couple of the trees. So I spent extra money to cable those big branches so they wouldn't fall on the house. At least if they're cabled, I think they just fall adjacent to the tree itself. So we spent extra money to actually save some of the trees, but some of the trees closer to the house have wounds in the bottom of them. So what he wanted to do was kind of clear around those trees. So many of them are wounded. I mean, it's a really tough area. We're losing a lot of trees back there, and was to keep an eye on the wounds on the bottom of the trees to see if we could keep them alive, so to say. So.
So when it says cleared brush area, it wasn't so much brush as additional trees? Because
Yeah.
Oh, no. It was total brush around the base of the main trees that are out there.
Yeah.
So
Primarily pepper bush.
Okay, so in that cleared brush area, I don't see any stumps, any cut trees there.
Correct.
So that
Correct.
was so basically went in and took out a bunch of the pepper bush. That's what I'm
Right. Just so we
okay.
can see the bottom of where the wounds are on the trees. And some of the trees are actually popping up out of the soil, which I know is very unhealthy.
Okay. So I think one of the things, just to let you know, because this is the education and life and all, this may have cost you less money to come to us originally.
Totally.
Because they're even from the pictures that I see that Janet took, there is still, I can see a number of compromised trees in there. And so maybe one of the things to do after we go through this process is, unless Janet thinks there's a way to combine it, is to, did your arborist make any recommendations for the trees like behind the shed of things that should, additional trees that should be cut, even though they didn't impact the house?
No, I didn't want any more cut, to be honest. It's not my thing. So no, we were.
No, I'm just looking at, I'm seeing a number of dying trees there. So that the idea, which leads to you're removing the pepper bush because you have trees that are damaged.
Yeah.
However, it's clear that you have a number of trees that are damaged and that will be coming down on their own. They just won't be closer to the house. Anyway, so given okay, so your concerns, Janet, because I don't see once we ascertained that everything was cleared on a 21E basis, you're concerned there's work that was actually done in the wetland, which is also part of the floodplain, and that's where you would like to have Ecotech involved to make sure that this is done properly.
That's right. And just for comparison, we did hire Paul as a third-party reviewer for 31 Springdale. And that involved, most of that work was in the buffer zone. We're talking about potentially quite a bit of work in the wetland itself. So I would say the need for, Paul's expertise is greater at this site.
Okay.
Tyler, do you feel you could do that work, or?
I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
So we'd be looking for, it would be a full-on restoration plan that also looks at revegetating the area where the pepper bush was taken out, probably with a more diverse bushes and things of that sort. I'm not averse to having Paul come in and do this. I think it's something that he could do relatively quickly. He would be there just to review. So the idea is we use him in lieu of Janet to review what Tyler or somebody else would come up with. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he basically has that expertise to look over Tyler's shoulder and say, because he's actually written a number of the wetland laws in the state. He's very, very well known and respected in the field.
Excellent.
And this is a fairly confined area, relative to other lots in town and so forth. So I would then the question is whether you use Tyler or you use someone else or somebody that Tyler knows who's certified for this to come up with a restoration plan.
Yeah, I'll be developing the restoration plan.
Excellent.
Okay. And
I like keeping Beta just because they have the history of the oil spill too. So Nova Armstrong was sold to Beta, is my understanding.
I see. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So then,
yes.
So Tyler will be able to look up immediately. Frankly, he could do it before he goes to bed tonight.
Excellent.
There's the DEP site is very good at showing you when if there's the final report plan has been done for oil spills and things like that.
Excellent. Excellent. I just wanted to keep that continuity because I want the best for what's out there and the history of it.
And you can see on the plan, they had the history because they had the original wetland line.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
And all that
Exactly.
allows things to move more quickly, stay within the planting
Oh,
season.
good. Okay.
And we can, get this done.
Beautiful.
So,
And John, also the other scope of this is getting a certificate of compliance request in, and then Paul reviewing
Yes.
that as part.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks
So,
again, Janet, for noticing that. I had no idea that wasn't in, so that's really important to me. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, then I basically as a motion then, are we looking for a enforcement action here or, yeah, so the enforcement order with corrective actions, with the addition of, hiring Ecotech for, their expertise, for review.
So I would recommend, I think the current enforcement order is fine as it is. It would
Okay.
commission voting to hire a third party review.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I forgot that we'd actually issued an enforcement order. So we're just looking to vote on hiring a third-party reviewer for the restoration. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Given that, does anyone want to so move?
Sure, so move.
A second,
Thank
but
you.
with a
What?
condition that the owner is gonna pay Ecotech, correct?
Yep.
Right,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I just wanted
No,
to
thanks,
make
Sarah.
that
No,
clear.
that's a
Yes.
that's a crucial
That's a
clarification.
very clear, right, okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we've had a second, and amended as such. I'll, let's see, let's go ahead and vote. Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna? Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And, let's see, and we can, if we can have our screen back, Tyler? Thank you. Okay, we want to get this moving as soon as possible. What will happen is Laura will notify Ecotech, and Ecotech will come up with a proposal with a fixed dollar amount, and Lori will send that to you, and then we'll need a check in the office, and all this can happen simultaneously with Tyler doing any
Excellent.
doing the
Excellent.
restoration plan
Perfect.
and the like. Okay.
Great.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, now the juicy stuff. We're looking for extending for renewing our commissioner terms for 3 years for Sarah Monaco and Anna Nagy.
I didn't even know that I was up.
Seems like it was just yesterday.
You know, the sheer joy and fun that we have makes time go by so quickly.
Wow.
So ask him how long he thinks he's been, not how much he has, how long he thinks.
I think you guys both have been 30 years plus.
No, Tim says at least 10 years on me, I think.
33.
Yep,
Wow.
there you go.
Wow.
92 was when I was an associate in 92 for a couple of years.
Wow.
Well, because
then-
there was
then-
there was such a waiting list to be commissioners that we
Then
had
Ralph
associates.
McAllister finally retired.
So so anyway, I'm asking, requesting that the two of you, just checking in to see if you would like to extend your terms.
Absolutely.
And Anna,
Absolutely.
that's been a quick 3 years, Anna. That's
I know. I mean, I knew 2025 was the year, but it's sort of bizarre. It's that year.
Well,
Oh,
so
yeah,
I think this will be my fourth 3-year term. This will be,
really, so you're 9 years in so far.
Wow.
yeah, I think.
Wow.
Because
Mhm.
I moved, if you remember, I moved here into this house in 2012, and Amy was the one who recommended me to be on the board. So
Mhm. And Amy, when did you come on?
You're muted. Amy.
just
Well,
thinking.
it's always in
Thinking.
her-
I am
always in
thinking
her
hard.
mind
I
is-
have no idea. 2010?
Yeah, so it was before, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
Yeah,
Kate
it
was
would
on
be
the
before.
board, yeah.
Kate,
and-
Kate was chair.
Now I just ran across my official acceptance letter from the selectmen, and that was 2006. So
Short time.
not quite. So, okay, hearing that we both would like to renew, I'll entertain a motion to renew their terms.
Recommend
Move-
to the
move
selectmen,
to
right?
recommend to the selectmen
Mhm.
renewal. Yes.
For Anna and
Banner and
Sarah. Okay,
Sarah, yes.
thank you. Second? Sarah?
Second.
Okay, I know. All in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Sarah. I don't know if can they vote on
We
their own?
can't vote.
Why
I don't
not?
Of
know.
course you
No,
can.
I
Okay,
think,
okay,
no, I think they can,
sure.
yeah.
Hi,
No,
yeah,
because
Aye.
you're current, you're
We're
current
voting for
now.
Anna and she's voting for you.
Right, right.
Yeah, it works.
exactly.
Anna-
We're voting
yeah,
for
Anna, right.
exactly.
And I'm the person who puts it over the edge. So yes,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Let's see. Lori, why don't you fill us in on this reserve fund transfer?
Well, I talked to you about an amount
Mm-hmm.
that we thought based on, you know, professional services is gone and, what is the balance of the WPA balance is about 3,500. And the trails balance, which I don't know, after Anna's summary is around 2,600. But I didn't know if, you know, if they had more plans for that money. So you and I talked, and for April, May, and June, you had felt that 35,500 would be enough
Mm-hmm.
to
So
finish
this is
for FY 25.
So this is because we're over budget and we don't have any other funds to reach in for. We're turning to the town and asking them to move $35,000 over to us so that we can take care of Janet's bill balance through the end of the fiscal year. And so we're given the small amounts we have and Janet's run rate recently, we're looking for $35,000. Last year they did that for, was it 25,000? Do you remember, Lori, how much it was? So we've done this
I
process.
don't remember how much.
Yeah, we've done this process before. And have you talked to anybody yet about this to warn them that this is coming down the pike?
No, because I thought that the commission needed to approve it before I did anything on it. And then it has to be signed by department head, John, which is you, and then it goes up to the town administrator for signature. So just to note, this next bill might take a while because they also require that the money is received
Before they pay
before we
out?
pay any bills with it.
Okay, so
To note that.
let's hoping that they didn't psychologically feel like they spent everything at the town meeting. So let's entertain a motion to request approval of the $35,500 reserve fund transfer.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Second.
Oh,
Sorry.
thank you. All in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Anna? And I'm an aye. Okey-doke. Let's see. Next on that, did people have a chance to look at Janet's April invoice?
Yeah, it seemed fair to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and appreciate it. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the invoice for April 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, next we have minutes from November of 23. Anyone ever had a chance to review those? And these are the,
I have not. I'm not gonna
okay,
lie, but
okay, and
maybe other
this,
people have.
these are with Janet's notes, is that correct?
Yeah,
Janet?
yep, that's
Okay. And did you send those out again, like a month ago or so?
I did. They went out at the end of February and then again in March.
Okay, doke. Has anyone else had a chance to review these? Okay, Anna has. Tim? Did you? No. Anna, do you recall anything stick in your mind? In
I
terms
don't
of,
think so. It looked fine to me, but also it's been a while.
been a while. So tell you what, given this is a public hearing, and we have this, I would say, undercurrent of doubt. Let's move this to the next one, and I entreat all of you to look up the April email from Janet.
Yes.
And
I'll also resend it. I'll
yes, I was just
That
gonna
would be great.
recommend. Yeah,
That would be great.
thank you. And then at this point, Lori, is that the last set of minutes we have until we get funding for Dale?
Yes.
Okay, doke. So, so we put in as at the town meeting as part of our budget request was $7,500 to bring us up to date based on Dale's run rate for minutes, which she has gotten more efficient. Other departments are still using her because they had payroll money that was set aside. We did not have that. That's why and they could not transfer money over to us for this year into payroll. They may be able to do it for Janet, but not for something as a full-on payroll situation. So we're hoping that we can get her back starting July 1 to bring us up to date on things. And the fact that the other departments are still using her show that we're not the only ones who need that service. So
Well, it also sounds like she's good.
yeah, she got
Working
she got in the stride of things. Yeah. So okay, then let's move on to land management work group update.
Yeah.
Please.
Don't have a ton of updates. We're meeting on Friday to plan out the bog bridges and get organized ordering our supplies. I tried calling DPW to ask them where they buy their signs because we want to get our horse crossing signs from somewhere that's not the internet if I can avoid it. But so if anyone has information on that, that'd be good. Let's see, we had a lovely time with trail work out in Wild Woods on Earth Day. It was mostly Rick and Greg, but Kay Peterson joined. And
excellent.
It was difficult to buy that few snacks, honestly. So I don't know if we'll end up using our entire snacks budget, but it was nice to have some water afterward. So I think that's where we are.
So what was it about? Was that cutting and raking or what sort of things
Oh, I forgot to send around photos. We put up, I'll do that after. We put up some directional signs.
Great.
So
Thank
Anna,
you.
I think when I was the one who, I was the spearhead getting the signs in front of the Hunt Club, on Center Street.
Yeah.
I think it was Bobby Tosi who helped.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
That those solar signs and those crossings.
And did they supply them or they just gave you the lead to
No, they
contact?
supplied them because I'm
Ooh.
a huge stink. I made it was a stink for a couple of years. And then it helped that Chief McGowan, I got him to come down and, hang out where we have our trailers and he would see.
Yeah.
So
Oh, interesting. To slow things down.
slow things down.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to go. I just spoke to Kevin McCabe today, and Bobby Tosi was dealing with some things at 31 Springdale, and there's a good chain of communication there.
Yeah.
So if you could contact him, that would be helpful.
What's the best way to do that?
Call the office and the DPW office and just ask for.
Or
okay.
Or
Cool.
Anna, what I do is I just walk into the office.
Yeah, actually,
I think that's my next move is to just show up in person and stop using the phone.
Yeah, that's what I do.
No, actually,
I just walk in. And for a
it's
long
very
time, Bobby didn't like me until we have a good relationship now. But yeah.
So,
past the conflict. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and you can also, I mean, Kevin McCabe has a corner office in there, whoever's available when you walk in.
Okay.
Or leave a message at the desk, and I'm sure we can get things going.
Sounds good.
Anything else for land management?
Let's see. There were some emails with Bill about the biological control, the beetles for Springdale Meadow. It looks like that's going to be over the summer. Let's see.
Have
I
they
think
been
that's
ordered?
it. Not yet, but
Oh, they
like
haven't?
there's
Oh.
been a reserve hold put on.
And how
Janet,
when
did I
we
miss
order that?
anything?
No,
How do we
I
pay?
thought he had ordered. I thought you guys had ordered the Beatles.
Yes, they have been ordered.
Oh, okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Beatles had been ordered, and
So when we order that, did they accept a purchase order, or did you know how do they get paid for it, or has it not yet been paid for?
They will bill the town. They'll bill the town.
Okay. Okay, great. It was interesting. After our site walk, I was driving by Main and Haven, and I could clearly see the spurge, since we now know what spurge looks like, popping up all over there. Okay. Is there any other business outside of what's on this evening's agenda that anybody would like to bring up?
I don't know if it's appropriate, but I did receive, you know, I think we all did, in the mail, Janet's, voluntary statement. I just don't know if that's something we should talk about or if we shouldn't talk about. I've never been.
Do we need an executive session for that? I don't know.
I think that would be, you know, something there. We discussed much of it at the previous meeting. So the purpose of that was to give everybody a hard copy there. We'll check. Right at the moment, what we're waiting for now is the restoration plan to come in front of us. So let's be optimistic and look at that. And I've not heard of anything, you know, proceeding beyond that. So if it gets that point, then we'll deal with town council.
Right.
And,
No, I mean, I give Janet kudos for doing what she did and whatever. I just and I want her to know that she has my full support. And I'm sorry that she had to, you know, do that.
And maybe we can put in the budget to buy her a shotgun.
Well,
I think you know, sawed off one, you know, you don't want to.
Maybe we could-
I think a pistol would be
Why don't-
better.
Why don't we
Not
just
a
ask,
shotgun or-
Mr. Jeffries for an extra one?
And I don't know if they have any. So
the only reason to do an executive session would be if we don't want it in the minutes. If there's a reason not to have it in the minutes.
well, there's also any sort of right, which would
It's not a
embody
personnel matter.
No, it would embody legal if there were
Yes,
the threat
but
of
it's
legal
not.
action. That's really where it would be.
Right.
I will add that there's always a silver lining and something to be learned from every experience. I had a conversation with some of the other town inspectors, and the fire inspector, I brought up the issue that I don't really have an official badge, and I was sort of criticized for that. So he's offered to make me an official badge, and is going to make the other inspectors an official like photo badge.
It's a great idea.
That's great.
Sweet. Okay.
That solves a
Thank
lot.
you.
Like, so you'll have your
also-
lanyard with your badge on it, which will be great.
I think you need a gold shield too.
Right, to really make it work. I think I conveyed this in the last meeting, but I'll just say, when I spoke to the chief, he was very forthcoming. He said, for anything, any concern that Janet may have, or any commissioners who are going to go on a site visit, that if they call the police department 15 minutes ahead of time, now that they know that we have that regulatory right, they will go ahead and send an officer over. And generally, what I guess Tim, you mentioned before, all they do is sit in the car.
That's usually typically that's all they've had to do. I mean, they're there in case anything happens, but they don't need to come out. And the car is a really good deterrent for anybody to misbehave.
Yeah. So I think we live and learn, and apparently we did learn it at some point in the past, but we did.
We had a similar incident many years ago, and did the same thing, police, and for a while, we had a police escort on every visit for a while.
Really?
Hmm For
Okay.
about a year.
Yeah. Which the chief, he said he'd be willing to do, but let's just, see. Well, it's up to Janet, frankly, for these things, and and obviously this is an unusual circumstance. But
Well, I thought
the other thing I would recommend is to have the citation,
the regulation,
the regulation,
yeah,
and we can
could laminate it and
laminate it, and you can carry it around. Hey, this gives me the right to do this, and. If you
that's a
object,
good
I will have
idea.
a policeman come and a police officer come and escort me. And that'll usually shut people up.
Yeah, because but we have it's the last 5 years we have run into a number of people saying this is my property, I can do whatever I want.
Right.
Right.
Right. Those are the same people we issue enforcement orders on to.
Well, we've been lucky. Many of them, the enforcement orders haven't been quite to that level. So, we've been fortunate there.
In the past,
let's see. Updates on active permits.
So the first is update on the high school. As you'll recall, we had a letter, a resident from Sherborne had done a site walk and found some crub lumber. Of that material near the wetlands. I did a site inspection with the head groundskeeper and also Don Fattori, the business manager. That was on May 2nd. My recommendation is that a letter come from the office just confirming that they need to remove all debris, including the crumb rubber, outside the buffer zone.
Oh, outside the buffer zone. So is there that crumb rubber was outside the buffer zone behind the building there?
No, it was within about 15.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So remove all crumb rubber inside the buffer
zone.
Right. Remove it out of the buffer
Oh,
zone.
okay, got it. Okay. Right. It's at Oxford Comma. And so okay. And anything else in that letter?
I don't think so. Just confirming, just a follow up on that site inspection, and as we discussed.
Can you do a paragraph for Lori, and then she can send it out of the office?
Yep.
Okay. And and then meanwhile, they'll probably just take it off site because they're not going to be using that material again. Okay, 6 Meadowbrook.
6 Meadowbrook, Dave Parrish is behind schedule, but he did acknowledge he's getting his the COC letter in. He still has bounds and the signage to go in, so I'm waiting for him to reach out. 31 Springdale is ongoing. I suggest we
So can I just I'm open to suggestion. I just wanted to update. I was there this afternoon. So I walked the property, took pictures, looked at, because an email chain had come up with the storm that we had over the weekend. There was a question on the part of the highway department whether water was properly getting into that retaining area, and the highway department was concerned that some of the work that Mr. Mitchell had done was impeding that. So they took a look at it. I took a look at that. There's a catch basin across the street. Appears to be a pipe that goes into that retaining area. There's lots of road sand that issues from that pipe. The erosion control barrier, the wattle, basically had been put in and probably washed into where that water exits, but that any flow of water, during a storm like that should have been able to push that out of the way. So the town is going to, they seem to be thinking that the pipe itself may be blocked internally. So they'll be jetting that out in the next week or two to get that functioning there. I took a look at the back of things. I also made it clear to Ms. Mitchell that this is frankly, this has been, the reason we ask him to get professionals involved is because this has been very amateurish. and it's causing more problems than it need to. He had to leave our meeting to get on a Zoom meeting with a potential surveyor engineer because he has been unable to get somebody out there. I spoke with Kevin McCabe this afternoon. He said even the town is running into a multi-month backlog in terms of running into that. I will I will call Rob Truex of Truex Engineering, formerly GLM, since they did the plans on this, and see if he can spare a little time to just get over there. But I also told him to expect I need more communication from him. We need more communication, and that we're on the verge of finding him. And to address the DLCT land, okay?
Yes, because
no. Let
there's a lot of work going on that side.
Stop, please stop.
Yes.
I looked at Google Earth, okay? None of this, virtually none of this, is any work that he did. It is clear by Google.
I don't care. It's on his land.
No, he's not doing anything on the land. As a matter of fact, he put a corral fence up to block things. He is not working on their land as far as we can tell, which is why I've asked for the surveyor.
That fence is on DLCT land, I'm almost positive.
That's why we asked him to get the surveyor. What I'm saying is, going through Google Earth, the previous owner had,
I agree.
Had planting boxes, raised beds, all sorts of stuff on the DLCT property.
I'm not disagreeing.
There's a rotting tree house way inside of DLCT property. So he has no intention, and he's not doing anything there. He needs the survey, is what I told him, before we can do that. But in terms of ongoing damage to DLCT,
no, he's just doing a lot more work on that side, making it it just seems like he's doing a lot of work that we're going to be undoing when he finds out that.
And I did not.
Part of the work that he's doing is on DLCT land.
I did not see that when I was there today. What I saw was he did a lovely raised bed system, but it's directly off the back of his driveway on that side. It is not close to the area in dispute. There is a shed that he moved that was on DLCT property. It may or may not be off because we need that survey, but I did not see any active work going on there. Although I did point out to him that I did see grass that were within the buffer, and that and he said there's a translation issue, and I told him use Google. But the other thing is that he showed me. He pulled up some of the culvert that ran off the back of that retaining basin and replaced it. It's old corrugated steel culvert, and then put in a whole bunch of additional culvert. The question was whether or not that was impeding anything that the highway department was talking about. And as far as I could tell, that did not seem likely. But I said that's all part of the restoration plan that needs to get generated more quickly, and that we will be and that to expect fines coming down the road if he doesn't get to it. Janet, you were going to come up with a recommendation there?
Well, I just think a firm deadline, again, just documenting that we are making an effort to get him into compliance. So again, a letter with a firm deadline. I'll be, if his concern is he can't afford someone, he's putting a lot of money into fencing and granite and stone walls out there, like a lot of.
I was going through the same thought process. Every time I drive by, he's actively the person installing these things, which is interesting. So he's had the stock there for a while. Other than it does look like he soldered things, but I
drive by there like 5 times a day, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what are you doing now? Like.
No, it's the question is like, what's he have for a job? But yeah, so it's not. I think what it was is we've encountered this elsewhere. Goddard came back with a $10,000 quote for a restoration plan, which was just, didn't seem fair, was not what he expected, and not what he had in the budget. And so he's been looking for somebody else, and we're finding out that other people are running into the same issue. I think, let's give him, a 30, I think, Jen, I like your turn of phrase there, that we're working to help him finish this up. And let's give him a 30-day notice from whenever Lori can get that letter out next week to have a restoration plan delivered to the office. Does that seem appropriate?
Yes, and it should, Lori, if you could include Paul's last communication, which was his so we did get a restoration plan. So he's very close to having an approved plan.
Good point. Yeah.
About 8 bullets that he needed more information or revisions.
Okay. Yeah, send Lori, then within the letter, if you could just direct him to his initial restoration plan draft and Paul's response and point out that he's very close to having this done.
Sure. He also needs to submit a check for Ecotech. They originally had an estimate of 2,560, and there's a January unpaid invoice of 826. I have requested it a couple times, but I will request it again. Just
Okay,
making you aware.
So he's never paid anything to his Ecotech, is that
No.
correct? Okay. Just on a heads up, my feeling is if we can't get this or we don't have communication clearly telling us when to expect it, that whatever meeting we have after 30 days from tonight, we address the potential for fines here, and we will I'll run that by town council as well.
I mean, I think
And
we have to. It reminds me of up in Sterling Drive of the Celtic player.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that.
Ignoring us, and then finally we're like, come on, like.
And it's interesting you mentioned in both circumstances, each homeowner thought they could do all the work that was necessary.
Right.
On their own.
On their own. And they're
yeah.
and we never like.
Yeah. So, no, I have found my discussions with several people recently for enforcement orders and the like has been pointing out, in a very blunt way that, this is why we have these rules, that no matter what they think, they're amateurs and they don't even know what it is they don't know. And they're doing things that are going to come back to haunt them as well as us. And we're kind of tired of it. So I'm just letting it as part of the minutes. I'm recommending that if we don't get progress on this.
But the unfortunate thing is Will has known what's been going on for the last 18 months. We all drive by his house. We see it. Like, I mean, I drive by his house 5-10 times a day. And I see
I think
going on.
we have no active danger right at the moment, but the question there is we need to get him to focus and stay on him in this case here. That's why I went out to visit him today, was to make that very clear. And I'll stay involved in there. But I just wanted to get it on record. That's what we should, and we'll get this letter out, but we we're gonna have to put some teeth into it, which is unfortunate because it's like, like Janet mentioned, he's really close. So, okay, let's see, 29 Saddle Ridge.
So, Deb indicated she's working with the owner on a restoration plan. But again, that's all been verbal, and I'm just wondering if we want to have some kind of documentation with a deadline.
I think we had talked, so did we not, after our meeting with them a couple weekends ago, did we not send anything out in writing to with an expectation deadline?
Nope.
Okay, then and with your discussion with Deb, because I thought I told him again something in on the 4-week time frame back then. Your conversation with Deb, did she give you any idea when she was expecting to submit it?
No, it was just an email. She said she's working on it. That's all.
Okay. Lori, why don't we add this to another letter that would go out? And with the understanding we understand that you're working with Debbie Anderson Please know that we're expecting and this would be emailed to Debbie as well, that we're expecting a submission by, when do you want to have that submission, Janet? Would it be
Um,
3 weeks or?
I think the same as Rural Drive. I think.
Okay, okay, let's do the 4, okay. Any questions, Lori?
Is that June 4th?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we talked about 14 Rural Drive. I sent out the very close to final revised Springdale Meadows Land Management Plan. I sent that out on Monday. My suggestion is that we put this on our next meeting agenda for final review. But if people can take a really close look at the recommendations for future management, they're about 20 pages. A lot of it's informational, but if people could take a really close look at that, because this will be the basis for any expenses going forward that we will need to manage the property.
So,
And was there anything that stood out to you that was different than what we had in the previous plan?
Yes, so it's a more proactive plan. There's some invasive work around the vernal pool, creating a buffer, a natural buffer around the vernal pool. Let's see, we talked about some potential trail work, maybe a stream crossing there. Some increased invasive plant management, including the spurge control. That's gonna run probably 15 to 2,000 a year. And then some changes to how the meadow mowing takes place.
So the spurge treatment is not a one and done thing where they go ahead and continue to proliferate?
That's right. I think he was recommending probably, let's see, he had it on here. Where's the spurge? Oh, for about 3 years. So annually
Okay.
years.
Okay.
so the beetles that we've ordered for $2,000. That's a 3-year thing.
We do it every year, so it'd be
Every year,
6,000
right.
total.
Right.
And the ostensible goal there is that we get rid of enough spurge so that we then don't have to spend $3,000 a year mowing.
Right.
Because we
So
could
the
get some of
beetles,
the
the
hay.
beetles are gonna kill the spurge.
Right. And then they would allow that to be edible grass, hay, and then Honeywell could come and do it for free. So we'll see. That's the theory. Okay, Janet.
Let's see. John and I met with the Rail Trail consultants and their wetlands, the design team there. That was back on April 25th. John, I don't know if you wanted to have any comments. I have my notes. I just need to get them into a narrative form and I'll send those out. But we talked about the width, which is going to be 10 feet, standard rail trail width. There are a number of areas, specifically over near Hunt Drive, where there are a number of challenges with the wetlands. It's 1,600 linear feet, where there are drainage ditches on both sides of the rail trail. We talked about what kind of drainage and stormwater management would allow them to have a 10-foot wide path over there. So a number of challenges. They're going to come back. We got some feedback from them. They're going to come back with a proposal, I think, over the summer, and that would be a more formal. They're not going to be permitting anything now, but we'll at least present this before it goes to town meeting. They'll present it to you before it goes to the town meeting.
And
So
and
I go ahead.
No,
No,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna
Sam.
say, I know these trails very well. One area that I'm very, again, I was against the rail trail. I'm now for it. But one area is when you come off of Hunt Drive, maybe Jan, this is what you're talking about, where Medfield comes in and Dover, like, there's a whole culvert right there. So, I mean, that's one area. And then the other concern is if the rail trail is going to go parallel to the Lesser McCoy property to Springdale.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole wetland area up there.
So it's interesting. When I first heard about the meeting, I thought we would be taking a look at the culverts that are underneath, and there are like 7 crossings there, and we can some of them where the trail is much higher, you see them down at the base. And it turned out that what they showed us was, especially coming out of Wild Woods, there's some people have actually over a 20-year period have extended trenches, dewatering trenches that may have existed in Wild Woods for 100 years or more. You can see by the straight line that they were extended directly to the rail line to dewater that in order to make some of the trails. The assumption was to make some of the trails drier inside of Wild Woods or whatever the next property is beyond Wild Woods going towards Medfield. The I don't know, I can't remember the name of that conservation property.
Yeah.
But anyway, what that does is that brings water down, and the rail line itself has what's called a sort of a spark arresting trench that's there. It's usually very shallow, and that's there to just catch any sparks that used to come off the engines.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that it wouldn't go into the woods or any other surrounding area. Those trenches now, and they would typically would have some water occasionally, there, which helped with that spark arresting and so forth. Now, some of those look like intermittent streams at times. There's actually running water there that comes in due to the dewatering that's coming in off of the Wildwood side of things. And so what's interesting is he didn't view it as a big deal. He thought it was a curiosity because he could go back through 40 years of aerial surveys. But he said other towns deal with that. And what they do is they install a culvert alongside, in place of that spark arresting trench, and build that up as part of the 10-foot space, so that when you're looking down that rail trail, underneath that may be a 12 or 15-inch culvert that's running, taking all that water, but it's become usable space up above. The other thing he pointed out was that the railway easement there is huge. It's 200 feet wide. It's not, it's normally around 100 feet wide, but for some reason there it's 200 feet wide.
Where are you talking about? Between Hunt Drive and
between Hunt Drive and going through Dover,
yeah.
It's 100-foot wide easement. So there are some people. There aren't that many houses that are within. So that's 100 feet from the center line. There aren't that many houses that are within 200 feet. There are probably 36 houses that are within 200 feet of the center of the rail line. There's probably a few houses, I'm assuming, going down to Haven Terrace there that are certainly well within, some of the yard spaces that has been built on that easement. But there aren't that many relative to the number of houses in Dover. But but he remarked on that because that gives him flexibility for managing wetlands and things of that sort. So it was eye-opening. It was very, and it was clear that they do this for a living, and that many of the other towns have dealt with these issues.
That's how, by the way, the railroads going west, they were a money-losing proposition, except for the fact that they got 2 miles on either side of the rail that they owned, that they would give it as part of the right of way. So and that's what they sold off and made all their money on. That's how they financed it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they built all the towns. And that's where they made their money. It's actually, I was reading about the Bright Line in Florida. I don't know if anyone has heard of that, but it's a private rail line going from Miami to Tampa or to Orlando, and they're putting a lot of money into upgrading the rails, faster train. It's very nice. It's nicer than Amtrak, and yet it's all private. And part of that is because they own all the land around that, and they're developing the land, which is where they're making the money.
Yeah, same kind of thing. But by the way, the rails back here, I don't know if they're the original rails, but they originally were put in the 1850s.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
makes sense. That makes sense.
They're really old.
I think, I guess my point is, I think we can all make it work.
Yeah, no, and
But
these people,
Again, I've said it on record 1,000 times. I was against the Medfield, whatever, but it has worked. Especially because we all get along. Horses are on the property. When horses poop, we've got rakes, we all get along. And
Yeah.
to be honest, every time I've been on the rail trail on my horse, people are like, oh my God, this is great. Like, so
Yeah.
it does work.
Yeah,
Oh,
somebody,
I think most of the town, that working together bit will go over really well, and people like having horses in town.
Or
So
it
I don't
doesn't,
think, yeah.
or whatever, or joggers or bikers, but like,
Mhm,
again, my whole thing was, I was coming from the city, no one got along in the Esplanade. No one. That was my thing, like, no one did, and so I've been proven wrong. We all can work together.
so we got a letter from a neighbor. I don't remember where she was, but she said, oh, this is a terrible idea. The rail trail's a bad idea. It's going to lower all our property values. And also all these people are going to come from all over the state to walk
Yeah,
on
it's
the
the
rail
same.
trail.
Yeah, we've heard
So,
about
and it turns
yeah.
out that the thing about property values is backwards. Every place they put in a rail trail, the adjacent houses go up in value.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And they sell faster
Yes.
as well.
Yep.
It's yeah, and it's interesting because we've gone over to the Needham Rail Trail frequently, and in other trails in other parts of the state where we've seen when they first go in, people put fences up, and then within 2 years, people put gates in those fences so they
And they
can
cut paths through the woods to
right, so they can access the rail trail. So
I have to recut mine. Mine has got all brushy. I have a trail going back to the
so I didn't know you backed up to it.
It's all good.
So
yeah, we used to see the train.
Oh, when it came
You
through?
used to,
Wow.
like, I mean,
Yeah.
so Tim,
A
like,
little tiny train.
I mean, Amy, you were, I mean, it was before my time, but we have past masters who used to literally hunt along the railroad, like when the train was going through, like Steve Brown was like hunting those paths when the train was going.
I mean, I've always argued that as long as the rail trail didn't eliminate the
the side trail.
access road that ran beside it, the hunt could always go, and the riders could always go through the side ones, and we just needed to harden the crossings.
Right.
And then everybody be happy, scrappy. That wasn't everybody's view, but that was my view.
No, I think it's still, I think
the
it's
old
still,
one,
I think it's still the same view. It's like, again,
and now everybody in the hunt is alongside me, but they weren't the last time. But that's okay. I mean, everybody learns, and opinions change, and Medfield did us a great service by doing their one first and showing us how
actually
the whole
Needham
thing
went
is.
first.
What?
Needham
was first.
No, but I mean, Medfield went
Doesn't have a
before
bridge in
we
the way.
did, and showed us all how innocuous it was. The Needham one was not innocuous. That was, they just made a huge, I mean, it's just it was huge, and they had their DPU do it, and it looks like a superhighway. It's not quaint.
Yeah, it's not
The one in
it's not a
Medfield
stone
quaint.
dust path.
No, it is.
What?
It is a stone dust path.
In Needham?
Yeah, the
yeah,
Needham one
it's,
is stone
yeah,
dust.
but
Yeah.
to Amy's point, it's this wide versus
It
this
is wider. It has
It's
well the other thing
wide,
is
and it's very industrial looking.
it has high tension lines running parallel to it, so that tends to keep it much wider, more sun and so forth. Okay, move just to
we can wrap this up. Sorry.
Oh, I had one
Go
other
ahead.
question, if I could.
Yeah.
So I got a note from Ann Reitmeyer today, and we hold the conservation restriction on the DLCT property there.
Which is where's Reitmeyer is
Lower
the top
Porter.
of she's at the top of Porter Woodlands.
So she's
Smith
okay.
Street.
Yeah.
She's 109 Smith Street, and she also owns number 1 Smith Street. She rents that. And she was wondering whether when they are holding a memorial service for her brother-in-law, whether at 109 Farm, whether they could use the Upper Porter Field for parking. And I haven't double checked the CR. I know that we can park horse trailers in that upper field as a part of the CR, but I don't.
Is this Upper Porter and Lower? We can do
Upper
both.
Porter.
We
No,
park.
no, horse trailers are okay to park on Porter because that's a specific exemption, a reserved right in the CR. But parking cars is different than parking
So
horse
does
trailers.
somebody
So
does somebody up there cut the grass, or what happens with that field?
yes, it's mowed. I'm not sure whether she's mowing it or whether somebody else, whether Mark Howe used to do it. I'm not sure.
It's always mowed.
They're both
Okay.
upper and lower are mowed. I've forgotten who mows them. I can ask Stephen Bates, but
And was
before I asked the DLCT trustees, I wanted to find out what the opinion on this matter from the CR holder was.
I would like to make a motion to.
Hold on, no, stop. I
Sorry.
had a question. So,
Okay.
okay. Because I thought the CRs, the CR on Porter had, was a little bit more restrictive in terms of public access, or that was something that was being discussed and then prevailed, or can you refresh us on that? Is the Porter property open to the public?
Yes, it is.
It is.
And it's even
Okay.
on the Bay Circuit Trail.
Oh, okay. So then it's really just for us, if somebody up there, maybe even this particular family mows it, a one-day event with cars for
For a memorial service for the family that gave us the bargain sale to buy it.
Yeah, so does, I don't see an issue with that. Does anyone have any comment on that?
So everybody's just going to ignore it. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be like stepping on.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that it was brought up
toes.
so Sarah, you wanted to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that the,
I don't think we want to
Okay, so
memorialize a violation.
I just
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
Okay,
Whatever.
so
I think we're just going to ignore a violation. That's all.
we're going to handle it as a neighborly, situation. So, okay. Thank you. Janet, let's see, 1214 Miller Hill.
Yes, so we're almost done here. So I have not heard anything 1214 Miller Hill. We got some kind of update over the winter, but I know we're going to hear back from all those folks soon as to what's happening. And Paul was responsible for it was either Paul or someone in his office was doing the third-party review. And I think just someone should reach out to them.
Okay. Lori, can you contact Paul just to get an update from him on this? And if he hasn't had anything, can he contact him?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last really good news, the town received a state grant for purchasing online permitting software implementation work. And then the town is covering, I think it's about 150,000 total, 100 from the state. And so that work is going to be starting soon. There'll be a lot of training. I think a lot of it'll be mostly staff and the inspectors, but I think they're hoping that commissioner and board members can also become familiar. And the hope is that that will go live by the end of the year. So that is really exciting. That's going to solve.
Finally, we're making it into the 20th century.
20th century, yeah. And then
So Janet, who is going to be doing the implementation? Like, is it us as commissioners or is
no.
No.
It
They
would
hired,
be
yeah, the firm that is providing the software does all the training, and they are available. They are going to be with us for a long time in terms of consulting and giving us support. So
So
they'll
it'll be
be,
like Lori and you and
and then also applicants and abutters.
Okay.
The public will be able to access, but in terms of populating it, it'll be myself and Lori and then the other town departments.
awesome.
And part of it is the people not only doing the implementation, but all the engineering firms that typically send us PDFs. They're familiar with this because they deal with it in numerous other towns where we're from a holdback on that compared to other towns. So it's hopefully nothing new under the sun here.
Oh, that's
But I
great.
don't know about our own
Great.
infrastructure, our own, our own infrastructure may have to have some things tied into it that may stand on its own. So, okay. Anything else, Janet?
That's it.
Okay. Well, given that we had a very, very complete initial discussion regarding the trout brook and everything, I think we did pretty well. I was hoping the town meeting ended at 9:58 the other day, and I was thinking, why can't we do that? But we almost did.
Pretty
So
close, pretty close.
yeah. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
re-upping. It's very much appreciated. So
Anna, you and I.
there you go. So well, and we'll keep our arms out there to welcome anyone else who
I
wants
know,
to.
I just
you know,
wish we could
so
recruit more people.
so well, once the rail trail is in, we'll bump into them. So
That's true.
yeah. So okay. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Night
And hearing
all.
no objections,
Thank you.
we're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.
Night.